When you leave everything in God's hands, you are surrendering to the truth that you do not have to carry the weight of the world alone. In this moment of surrender, you acknowledge that the power within you is not yours alone, but it is the divine power that created you. The struggle ends when you realize that it's not about your own effort to control, but about trusting the flow of life, the divine plan that is unfolding perfectly in each moment. Your faith in God transforms the way you see your circumstances, for you now see them through the lens of divine love and wisdom. When you leave everything in God's hands, you release all fear, all doubt, and all worries that have held you captive. You open yourself to a reality where the unseen becomes seen, and the impossible becomes possible. God, in His infinite wisdom, knows exactly what you need, when you need it, and how it will arrive. Trusting in this divine knowledge is a liberating experience. As you rest in His hands, you are no longer bound by time or space, for you know that everything is already working out for your good. This surrender is not a passive act, but an active decision to let go. Every morning when you rise, you do so with a heart full of gratitude, knowing that today is another opportunity to witness God's work in your life. As you pray, feel the presence of God within you, knowing that the very act of praying connects you to the source of all creation. Your words, your thoughts, your prayers, when aligned with God's will, hold power to shape your world. When you release everything to Him, you free yourself from the need to control outcomes, and in doing so, you invite divine intervention into your life. When you leave everything in God's hands, you begin to notice a shift. Peace, which once felt distant, becomes your constant companion. Anxiety, which once gripped your heart, is replaced with calm assurance. You begin to see that your circumstances do not define you, but rather your relationship with God does. You are no longer subject to the whims of the world around you. Instead, you are grounded in the eternal truth that God is always with you, guiding your steps. In this space of divine trust, you move through life with the knowing that all things are possible. Every challenge becomes an opportunity for growth, every obstacle a stepping stone to your higher self. As you leave everything in God's hands, you align yourself with the infinite power that created the universe. And in this alignment, you become unstoppable, for nothing can stand in the way of divine will. This is the life you were meant to live, one where surrender is not weakness, but strength. One where trust is not blind, but the truest form of knowing. As you surrender to God, you begin to see the beauty in His plan, a plan that has always been there, waiting for you to step into it fully. Each day, as you pray and devote your heart to Him, you experience the unfolding of this divine plan, a plan that is far greater than anything you could ever imagine on your own. When you leave everything in God's hands, you release your grip on the illusions of control that so often bind you to frustration and fear. You surrender not to helplessness, but to divine order, the perfect wisdom of a God who knows your heart's deepest desires and the path to fulfilling them. This surrender opens the door to grace, the space in which miracles unfold. Every prayer you speak, every thought you entertain, is an invitation for the divine to work within you. And as you release the need for control, you make room for His power to manifest in your life. You are not abandoning your dreams or desires by leaving everything in God's hands. On the contrary, you are aligning yourself with a greater purpose, a higher plan that surpasses your own understanding. Your dreams, once tightly held and suffocated by worry, now begin to breathe in the infinite air of possibility. You trust that God is not only able to fulfill your needs, but that He does so in ways that are far beyond what you could have conceived with your own limited mind. The power of letting go, of trusting in God's plan, transforms the way you experience life. What once seemed like obstacles are now seen as necessary steps to your growth. Challenges become your greatest teachers, guiding you into deeper wisdom and higher levels of understanding. When you leave everything in God's hands, you are declaring to the universe that you no longer need to struggle, for you know that the divine is already at work. You surrender to the knowing that whatever is meant for you will find its way to you, regardless of external circumstances. The more you trust in the unfolding of divine will, the more you see evidence of it in your life. This is not a passive waiting, but an active awareness of God's presence, a constant invitation to feel His guidance. Every decision you make, every action you take, becomes infused with the divine certainty that your path is already written in the stars, and that you are walking it with the Creator by your side. As you devote yourself to God through prayer, you open the floodgates of divine communication. Prayer is not merely a petition for what you want, but a sacred dialogue where you align your will with His. You speak not from a place of need, but from a place of trust. You trust that God hears every word, every whisper of your heart, and that He responds according to His perfect timing. Prayer becomes a daily conversation, an intimate exchange between you and the divine, where you are reminded of your infinite worth and the unconditional love that surrounds you. When you leave everything in God's hands, you step into the flow of abundance, the flow of divine love, peace, and joy that is always present, but often hidden beneath layers of doubt, fear, and attachment. This flow is not just a concept. It is a living, breathing force that surrounds you and moves through you. When you allow yourself to be swept into this flow, you experience the world in a completely new way. No longer burdened by the need to control, you begin to see opportunities where others see obstacles. You notice synchronicities, moments of perfect timing that affirm that you are on the right path. Your faith, your trust, becomes the catalyst for this divine movement. You no longer rely on your own limited understanding of the world. Instead, you lean into the knowing that there is a higher intelligence at work. And when things don't go as expected, you don't react with frustration or despair, but with a deep sense of peace, knowing that God's plan is unfolding exactly as it should. You understand that what seems like a detour is often the most direct route to the blessings you seek. You trust that every closed door is an invitation to walk through one that is meant for you. And every delay is a divine pause that is preparing you for something greater. The more you leave in God's hands, the more you realize that the essence of life is not in striving, but in surrender. It is in letting go of the need to control the outcome and trusting that the outcome will always be in your favor. This surrender does not mean inaction, but rather action that is born of divine guidance, action that is aligned with your highest good. You no longer act out of fear or desperation, but out of love and trust in the divine plan. Every action you take becomes infused with divine energy, and every step you make is guided by the unseen hand of God. There is a profound power in letting go. When you release the need to control, you step into the power of the present moment. You stop living in the future, in the fear of what might happen, or in the past, in the regret of what has already occurred. You live in the now, and in the now all things are possible. You begin to realize that everything you need is already within you, and that the universe is conspiring to bring you everything you desire. When you leave everything in God's hands, you stop fighting against life and start dancing with it, knowing that the rhythm of the universe is always in perfect harmony. When you wake up in the morning, you open your eyes and immediately thank God for the gift of a new day. You acknowledge the breath in your body, the beating of your heart, the life force that sustains you. You start your day by surrendering it all to God, knowing that the divine is already at work in your life. You trust that the day will unfold with divine ardor, that everything you need will be provided, and that you will be guided in every step you take. Your morning devotional becomes an act of surrender, a moment where you give thanks for the unknown blessings that are already on their way. You begin each day with prayer, not as a request for what you want, but as a declaration of faith. You declare that you trust God with your life, your work, your relationships, and your health. You acknowledge that you are a vessel for divine love, and that all things are working together for your good. In that moment, you release all worry, knowing that God has already prepared the way for you. You feel a deep sense of peace, knowing that the divine is guiding you, even when you cannot see the way. Throughout your day, you carry this peace with you. You are no longer burdened by the need to control or manage everything. Instead, you are open to the flow of divine wisdom and grace. You begin to notice the subtle signs that God is speaking to you: an unexpected phone call, a chance meeting, a sudden inspiration. These signs are not coincidences, but divine synchronicities, guiding you along your path. You trust that each step is divinely timed, and as you move forward with faith, you see doors opening, opportunities unfolding, and blessings manifesting. Even in the midst of challenges, you remain calm, knowing that you are never alone. When you leave everything in God's hands, you trust that God will provide for you, protect you, and guide you through every storm. You face life's difficulties not with fear, but with the confidence that you are supported by a divine force greater than yourself. The peace that comes from this trust transcends all understanding, and you carry it with you no matter what life may bring. When you lay your head down at night, you release all the events of the day into God's hands. You surrender the worries, the disappointments, and the triumphs, knowing that everything is in divine order. You trust that God is already working while you sleep, arranging the pieces of your life in perfect alignment. You fall asleep with a heart full of gratitude, knowing that tomorrow will bring even greater blessings, for God's hands are always at work in your life. As you continue to let go and place everything in God's hands, you begin to realize that the act of surrender is not about giving up, it's about receiving. Receiving the peace, the joy, the wisdom, and the divine guidance that have always been available to you, but have often been obscured by your need to control. When you let go of the need to constantly plan and manipulate, you open up a space for divine intelligence to move freely in your life. This is where miracles occur, not because you have forced them, but because you have allowed them to happen. The more you surrender, the more you witness the power of divine timing. Things unfold in ways that feel effortless, like stepping into a stream and letting the current carry you. The more you release your attachment to the outcome, the more you find that everything works out better than you could have ever imagined. The divine knows you better than you know yourself. It knows the desires of your heart, the deepest longings, and it orchestrates everything in your life to fulfill those desires in the most beautiful and unexpected ways. You see, God's plan is not just for you to survive, but to thrive. It's not just for you to reach a destination, but to experience a journey that is rich with blessings. When you leave everything in God's hands, you are choosing to experience this journey with ease, with grace, and with a deep sense of peace. You stop rushing, stop forcing, and start trusting. The results are not only the fulfillment of your desires, but a deeper connection to the divine within you. This is the true gift of surrender, the connection to the source of all that is, a connection that is not bound by time, space, or circumstance. Every morning as you rise, you awaken to this truth, the truth that your life is divinely orchestrated, that each step you take is guided by a loving hand that sees beyond your understanding. Your morning devotional becomes a time to align yourself with this truth, to remind yourself that all things are working together for your good. You do not have to worry about what will happen tomorrow, for you know that God has already gone before you and prepared the way. Your job is to walk in faith, to trust that every step is leading you to something greater than you could ever imagine. As you leave everything in God's hands, you also begin to feel a profound sense of freedom. Freedom from the need to please others, freedom from the burden of self-doubt, and freedom from the fear of failure. You realize that your worth is not tied to your achievements or the opinions of others, but to the fact that you are divinely loved and supported at all times. This knowledge shifts everything. No longer do you measure your success by worldly standards, but by your ability to stay aligned with the divine, to trust that God's plan is always the best plan for your life. The freedom that comes from surrender also brings a deep sense of humility. You realize that you are not the center of the universe, but that you are a part of something much greater than yourself. This understanding helps you release any sense of entitlement or impatience, for you know that everything is unfolding at the perfect time. When you surrender, you acknowledge that you do not have to have all the answers. You do not have to figure everything out, because God has already figured it out for you. There is a profound peace in trusting this divine wisdom. You no longer feel the need to question everything, to analyze every decision, or to second-guess yourself. You are at peace because you know that you are being led by a force that is all-knowing, all-loving, and all-wise. You no longer have to struggle against life because you are no longer fighting for control. Instead, you are surrendering to the flow, and in this flow you find an effortless rhythm that brings harmony and balance into every area of your life. When you leave everything in God's hands, you also begin to understand the power of your thoughts and words. You realize that what you think and speak is a reflection of your trust in God's plan. You begin to speak life, to declare the goodness of God over every area of your life. Your words become affirmations of faith, statements of truth that align you with the divine flow. When you speak in this way, you do not speak from a place of lack or limitation, but from a place of abundance and trust in God's infinite provision. Your thoughts shift as well. You no longer dwell on fears, doubts, or worries because you know that God has already taken care of all of it. You understand that your thoughts are powerful, and as you focus on thoughts of faith, hope, and trust, you are creating a reality that is aligned with God's will for your life. Your thoughts begin to mirror the divine, and as a result, your experiences begin to align with the peace, abundance, and joy that you have invited into your life. You also begin to notice that as you surrender more and more to God's hands, your life becomes simpler. The need to chase after things, to strive for success, to hustle constantly begins to fade away. You start to realize that everything you need is already within you. The peace, the joy, the abundance, the love, it's all here, right now, in this very moment. When you leave everything in God's hands, you stop chasing after external things for fulfillment. Instead, you recognize that the fulfillment you seek is found within. Your relationships begin to reflect this inner peace as well. As you surrender your need to control others or their actions, you free them to be who they are without judgment or expectation. You begin to relate to others from a place of unconditional love, knowing that just as God loves you, He loves them too. This love is not based on what they do or do not do, but on the understanding that all of us are part of the same divine creation. When you release the need to change or fix others, you open up a space for true connection, for authentic love to flourish without constraints. As you continue to pray, as you continue to devote your time to God, you begin to notice how He works through you. Your actions, your decisions, and your thoughts become more aligned with His divine purpose. You begin to see your life as a vessel through which divine love, wisdom, and power flow. You no longer see yourself as separate from God, but as one with the divine, a channel through which His blessings can pour into the world. The more you trust, the more you experience God's faithfulness. You see how He provides for your every need, how He guides you to the right people, places, and opportunities. You begin to realize that the good things in your life are not just random occurrences, but manifestations of God's love and care. Even in difficult moments, you know that God is with you, guiding you, strengthening you. You begin to see that challenges are not punishments, but opportunities to grow in faith and to deepen your relationship with God. As you continue to let go and place everything in God's hands, your life begins to unfold in ways that you never thought possible. You experience peace in the midst of chaos, joy in the face of adversity, and love in the darkest of times. The more you trust, the more you find that God's plan for you is far greater than anything you could have ever imagined. When you leave everything in God's hands, you step into a life that is rich with blessings, a life that is divinely guided, and a life that is filled with purpose and meaning. The surrender is not the end, but the beginning of a life that is beyond anything you could have dreamed. When you let go and place everything in God's hands, you begin to tap into an inexhaustible well of strength and wisdom. What once seemed overwhelming or impossible suddenly becomes manageable, because you recognize that you are not carrying the weight of the world alone. In your devotion, you realize that you are partnered with the Creator of the universe, a force far greater than any challenge or obstacle you may face. This awareness brings with it an unwavering sense of peace, knowing that God's wisdom will guide your every step and that His timing is always perfect. You see, when you let go of control, you create space for miracles to unfold. Too often we find ourselves trapped in the grip of our own expectations, constantly trying to force outcomes or make things happen in our own time. Yet when we let go and trust God with the process, we give the divine the space to work. There is a deep knowing that every event in your life, every decision, every moment of waiting is a part of a larger plan that is unfolding perfectly. You do not need to know all the details of this plan because God does. Your only role is to walk in faith, step by step, knowing that you are being led to exactly where you need to be. With this trust comes an understanding that everything has its season. Sometimes we may not see the immediate fruits of our faith and devotion, but God is always working behind the scenes, orchestrating every detail to bring about your highest good. There is a season of preparation, a season of sowing, and a season of reaping. In each season, God is teaching you something, growing you and refining your character. You are being shaped into the person who is ready to receive the blessings that are already waiting for you. When you place everything in God's hands, you also place your trust in His ability to transform even the most difficult situations. Where you may see an obstacle, God sees an opportunity for growth. Where you may see a setback, God sees a setup for something greater. As you grow in this trust, you begin to shift your perspective, no longer seeing challenges as burdens, but as stepping stones that lead you closer to your purpose. It is through the challenges that you find your strength, resilience, and faith. It is through the waiting that you learn patience and the value of divine timing. Each moment, each step is an opportunity to deepen your trust in God's perfect plan. One of the most beautiful aspects of surrendering everything to God is the freedom it brings. You are no longer weighed down by the need to control everything or to worry about the future. Instead, you can breathe deeply, knowing that the divine has already taken care of everything. This freedom allows you to be fully present in each moment, free from the burden of anxiety or doubt. Your life becomes more joyful, more light-hearted, because you are no longer carrying the weight of your worries. You have given them to God, and in return, He has filled you with His peace and assurance. As you surrender, you also begin to see how the power of your thoughts and words aligns with divine will. The more you let go of your need to control outcomes, the more you realize that you have the power to shape your reality through your thoughts, your prayers, and your declarations. You begin to speak life into every situation, affirming that God's will is being done in your life and that His plan is always for your highest good. Your words become a reflection of the trust you have placed in God, and as you speak in faith, you see your reality begin to shift. In this state of surrender, you realize that you are not powerless. You are, in fact, more powerful than ever because you are in alignment with the divine. The power is no longer in your hands to control the outcome, but in your hands to trust that God's outcome is always better than anything you could have planned for yourself. There is immense power in surrender because it is the ultimate act of faith. You are saying, I trust you. God, I trust that you know what is best for me. I trust that you are working all things together for my good, even when I cannot see it yet. With this trust comes a sense of inner calm that radiates outward. You find that even in the midst of chaos, you are able to remain grounded, centered, and peaceful. The world around you may be uncertain, but within you there is a stillness that cannot be shaken. This is the peace that surpasses understanding, the peace that comes from knowing that everything is in God's hands. It is a peace that cannot be disturbed by circumstances, because it is anchored in the knowledge that you are divinely cared for, and that nothing can separate you from God's love. Each day, as you surrender and place everything in God's hands, you grow stronger in your faith and trust. You begin to see the fruit of this surrender in your life. Doors opening, relationships healing, opportunities presenting themselves, but even more than these external blessings, you experience an internal transformation. Your heart becomes lighter, your spirit more attuned to the divine, and your life more filled with love, joy, and peace. You begin to radiate a divine confidence that comes from knowing that you are in the hands of an all-powerful, all-loving God. This confidence does not come from your own strength, but from the strength of the one who holds you. As you continue to release and trust, you become more and more attuned to God's guidance. Your intuition sharpens, your decisions become clearer, and your path becomes more illuminated. You no longer need to force things or struggle against life because you trust that everything is unfolding perfectly. You understand that you are exactly where you need to be and that God is leading you step by step, moment by moment. When you leave everything in God's hands, you also begin to see the beauty in each moment. Even in the midst of challenges, you are able to find peace and joy, knowing that God is with you. There is a divine timing to everything, and you trust that the perfect solution will reveal itself at the right moment. You understand that nothing is happening to you, but rather for you. Every situation, every encounter, every challenge is an opportunity to deepen your trust in God and to grow closer to the divine. In your devotion, you also realize that the power of prayer is magnified when you surrender everything to God. Prayer becomes not just a request for help, but a deep communion with the divine. You are no longer praying from a place of desperation, but from a place of trust. Your prayers are filled with gratitude, knowing that God is already working on your behalf. Your prayers are not about changing God's will, but about aligning yourself with it. As you pray, you feel the presence of God surrounding you, guiding you, and filling you with peace. Your morning devotional becomes a sacred time to connect with the divine, to offer your day to God, and to trust that He will lead you. As you meditate on His promises, you feel a deep sense of peace and assurance that no matter what comes your way, God has already gone before you. You know that He is with you in every moment, that He is guiding your thoughts, your actions, and your decisions. With this knowledge, you face the day with confidence, knowing that you are not alone. The more you surrender and trust, the more you begin to see the truth. Everything is working together for your good. There is no need to worry, no need to fear, no need to control. All you need to do is trust. And in trusting, you will experience the fullness of God's love, guidance, and provision. When you leave everything in God's hands, you open the door to a life that is filled with peace, joy, and purpose. You step into the flow of divine grace, and you walk through life with a heart full of faith, knowing that everything is in God's hands. As you continue to place everything in God's hands, the nature of your faith begins to evolve. You no longer simply hope for things to work out. You trust with unwavering certainty that God's will is always for your highest good. The divine plan, while sometimes mysterious, is never flawed. It is in complete alignment with your deepest desires, even if you do not yet fully understand how it will unfold. Every step you take on this journey is guided, and your faith in God's perfect wisdom becomes more profound with each passing day. This trust grows in its power when you begin to experience the truth that God's hands are not just an abstract concept. They are tangible, ever-present, and deeply involved in your life. The more you rely on His guidance, the more you see His fingerprints in every aspect of your existence. The choices you make, the people you encounter, the opportunities that arise, they all begin to feel like divine orchestrations, and as you recognize this divine involvement, you become more willing to surrender everything to God, fully embracing the knowledge that His will is always better than your own. When you surrender to God's plan, there is a deep sense of relief. The burden you have carried for so long of trying to control every outcome, of worrying over what the future holds, begins to fall away. You feel lighter, freer, as though you have been carrying a weight that you didn't realize was so heavy. In the act of surrender, you experience liberation. The fear, the anxiety, the tension, all dissolve as you place your trust in the divine. You realize that you don't have to carry the burden alone. God is there, lifting you, guiding you, and empowering you. This freedom is not just emotional, it is spiritual. You come to understand that in surrendering everything to God, you are not relinquishing control in the way the world teaches you to fear. Instead, you are gaining access to a higher form of power, the power that comes from divine wisdom, boundless love, and unwavering strength. In surrender, you are tapping into a force far greater than yourself, one that can turn impossible situations into extraordinary blessings. The act of surrender is not passive, it is an active choice, a conscious decision to place everything in God's hands, knowing that you do not need to understand all the details. Your role is to trust, and your faith becomes the bridge between where you are and where God is leading you. You begin to understand that your path, while sometimes unclear, is being shaped by the hand of the Creator. Your trust in God's timing becomes stronger as you see how everything falls into place in its own perfect way. The divine is always working, even when you cannot see it, and you trust that no matter how long it takes, God's plan will unfold precisely as it should. In this journey of trust, you also come to understand that surrender does not mean inaction. It does not mean that you simply sit idly by waiting for things to happen. Instead, it means taking the next right step with full trust that the divine is leading you. When you trust God with everything, you begin to see that your actions, too, are guided by divine wisdom. The right decisions come more easily. Opportunities appear with greater frequency, your intuition sharpens, and you find yourself in the right place at the right time. This is the beauty of surrender. It brings you closer to your true self. As you trust in God's guidance, you begin to hear the still, small voice within you more clearly. You begin to recognize that this voice is not merely your own thoughts, but the voice of God speaking to your heart. You begin to follow your inner guidance with more confidence, knowing that it is aligned with the divine. Your life becomes less about reacting to external circumstances and more about responding to the quiet, powerful whispers of your soul. You move in harmony with God's will, knowing that your every decision is being led by divine wisdom. When you allow God to lead, you also begin to see that His plan is never in competition with your desires. The things that you have longed for, the dreams you hold deep within your heart, are not being ignored or overlooked. Instead, they are being woven into the divine tapestry of your life in ways that are far beyond your comprehension. Your desires, your hopes, and your dreams are all part of the divine plan, and as you surrender to God's will, you begin to see those desires come to fruition in the most beautiful, unexpected ways. God, who created you with a unique purpose, is also the one who placed those desires in your heart, and He is faithful to fulfill them in His perfect timing. One of the most profound realizations you will have when you surrender to God's hands is that you begin to see that you are never truly alone. It is easy to feel isolated or abandoned when life becomes difficult, when things don't seem to be going your way. But when you place everything in God's hands, you realize that God's presence is constant. He walks with you every step of the way, and His love surrounds you at all times. Even in the darkest moments, when you feel like you're walking through the storm, you are not alone. God is with you, carrying you, strengthening you, and guiding you. This is the reassurance that comes with surrender. No matter what you face, you have the strength of the divine behind you, and you are never walking this path alone. This understanding of God's presence in your life is life-changing. It shifts your perspective from one of fear and uncertainty to one of peace and assurance. You realize that nothing can separate you from God's love, and that His purpose for your life is unstoppable. No matter what obstacles may arise, no matter how difficult the journey may seem, you know that God has already gone before you and that He is with you every step of the way. As you continue to let go and place everything in God's hands, you begin to experience the transformative power of this surrender. You see how your relationships begin to heal, how your work and creative endeavors flow more effortlessly, and how your overall sense of well-being improves. The divine in its infinite wisdom works in ways that are beyond your understanding, and you begin to see how all things are being worked together for your good. Your life becomes a living testament to the power of surrender, as you witness firsthand the miracles that unfold when you trust fully in God's will. As you deepen in trust, you begin to notice the subtle shifts that occur. The worries that once consumed you begin to fade away, replaced with a deep sense of peace. Your heart becomes more open, your spirit more receptive to divine guidance, and your life more full of purpose. You no longer have to chase after things, because you know that everything you need is already on its way to you. You trust that God is working behind the scenes, arranging everything perfectly in its time. This peace that you feel is not contingent on external circumstances. It is an inner peace that transcends what is happening around you. It is the peace that comes from knowing that everything is in God's hands and that God is always faithful. This peace is unwavering, a constant presence within you, no matter what the world may throw your way. It is a peace that cannot be shaken by fear, doubt, or anxiety. It is a peace that comes from the unshakable knowledge that you are in alignment with divine will and that all is well. In your morning devotionals, as you reflect on these truths, you deepen your understanding of what it means to leave everything in God's hands. You begin to recognize that your life is a divine collaboration. God is working with you, in you, and through you. Every prayer you offer, every word you speak, every thought you think is part of the grand unfolding of God's plan. Your devotion becomes not just a moment of prayer, but a moment of deep communion with the divine. It is a moment where you align yourself with the greater flow of God's purpose for your life. You begin to see that every day is an opportunity to step further into the fullness of your divine potential. And as you step into this trust and surrender, you find that you are not just waiting for things to change, you are already changing. You are evolving, growing, and becoming the person you were always meant to be. Each day is a new opportunity to deepen in faith, to trust more fully, and to walk in alignment with the divine purpose that has been set before you. The more you surrender to God's hands, the more you discover the beauty of His plan for your life. As you continue on this journey of trusting God with every aspect of your life, you will experience a profound shift in your awareness. The act of surrendering becomes less about giving up control and more about realizing that true control was never yours to begin with. You begin to see that trying to control every detail of your life is an illusion and that it only brings unnecessary stress and frustration. God, in His infinite wisdom, knows exactly what you need, when you need it, and how it will unfold. When you fully embrace this truth, you begin to relinquish your fears and doubts. You stop worrying about the future, about what might go wrong, because you understand that God's plan is perfect. You recognize that nothing is outside His power, and that nothing happens without His consent. There is immense freedom in knowing that you do not have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. The burden of control is lifted, and in its place is a deep sense of peace and trust. This peace is not based on your circumstances. It is rooted in the assurance that God is in control and will guide you every step of the way. It is in this peace that you begin to see the miraculous unfold. When you are no longer fighting to make things happen, you open yourself to receive what God has already prepared for you. You see opportunities and blessings where once you saw obstacles. Relationships improve, doors open, and the flow of abundance becomes apparent. What once seemed impossible now feels within reach, because you have let go of the need to force things into existence. Instead, you are allowing God to work in His own perfect timing. One of the most powerful things that happens when you leave everything in God's hands is that you begin to experience a deepening sense of trust in yourself. When you align with God's will, you become more attuned to His guidance. You begin to trust your instincts, your inner voice, and your decisions. You no longer second-guess yourself or wonder if you are making the right choices. You understand that your intuition is the voice of God speaking to you, and as you follow it, you gain confidence in your ability to navigate life's challenges. You no longer fear making mistakes because you know that God's hand is guiding you even when you stumble. This trust in yourself, fueled by your trust in God, allows you to step into your true power. You are no longer living from a place of fear or insecurity. Instead, you are moving through life with a deep sense of purpose and knowing. Every decision, every action is guided by divine wisdom, and you begin to realize that you are a co-creator with God. Your life is a reflection of the divine energy that flows through you. The more you surrender to God's plan, the more you align with your highest potential. And as you continue to trust and surrender, you begin to notice something else profound. Your relationship with God deepens. The more you surrender, the more you begin to feel His presence in your life. You recognize that He is not distant or separate from you. He is within you, around you, and working through you. This realization transforms your relationship with the divine. No longer do you feel like you are praying to a far-off God who is disconnected from your life. You begin to feel His presence in every moment, whether you are at work, at home, or in the midst of a challenge. You recognize that He is always with you, guiding you, loving you, and empowering you. It is in this deepening relationship with God that you begin to experience true spiritual growth. As you surrender more fully to His will, you begin to understand the depth of His love for you. You realize that He is not a distant, judgmental figure, but a loving Father who desires only the best for you. This love is unconditional, never wavering, and always present. It is this love that empowers you to face challenges with courage and grace, knowing that you are not alone and that God is with you every step of the way. As you spend time in your morning devotionals, you deepen this relationship with God. Your prayer becomes less about asking for things and more about opening your heart to Him. You begin to listen more than you speak, to quiet your mind and hear the still, small voice that speaks directly to your soul. You realize that prayer is not just about asking for help. It is about communion with the divine, about aligning yourself with God's will, and about surrendering your own desires in favor of His greater plan. Your prayer becomes an act of trust, a declaration that you believe God's plan is perfect and that you are willing to follow wherever He leads. And as you continue to surrender, you notice something remarkable happening. Your desires begin to shift. At first, you may have been focused on what you wanted: material success, approval from others, or even personal achievement. But as you align more closely with God's will, your desires become more attuned to His purpose for your life. You begin to seek peace, fulfillment, and love, rather than external validation. You begin to understand that true success is not measured by what the world sees, but by the inner peace and joy that comes from living in alignment with God's will. When you surrender your desires to God, you are not abandoning them. You are aligning them with His greater plan. You are trusting that the desires He placed in your heart are not only for your good, but for the good of others as well. As you surrender, you begin to see how your desires and God's plan are perfectly intertwined. You realize that the more you trust, the more your desires are fulfilled in ways that are far beyond your expectations. Your heart becomes open to receive all that God has prepared for you, and you begin to see the fruit of your surrender in tangible ways. At the same time, you begin to notice that your fears and anxieties lose their grip on you. When you place everything in God's hands, you stop worrying about what might go wrong. You trust that God is leading you toward your highest good, and that even if you encounter difficulties, He will be with you every step of the way. You learn to embrace challenges as opportunities for growth and transformation. Each challenge you face becomes a reminder of God's presence and power in your life. You no longer fear the unknown because you know that God has already gone before you and prepared the way. And as you continue to walk in this trust, you begin to witness the miraculous unfold in your life. Things that once seemed impossible begin to happen with ease. Opportunities that you never expected arise, and blessings begin to flow freely into your life. You see that when you trust God with everything, you are opening yourself to the abundant flow of His grace and love. You begin to understand that God's provision is limitless, and that when you surrender to His will, everything you need will be provided. This realization is profound. It is the understanding that you do not need to struggle, strive, or fight for what you want. You simply need to trust God, surrender to His will, and allow Him to work in your life. The more you do this, the more you see how His plan is always unfolding perfectly, and you begin to understand that everything you desire is already on its way to you. Your role is not to chase after it, but to remain in trust and faith, knowing that God is always at work behind the scenes. As you continue on this journey, your morning devotionals become more than just a routine. They become a sacred time of connection with the divine. They become a time to quiet your mind, open your heart, and receive guidance and peace from God. You begin each day with the understanding that everything you need is already provided, and that you are walking in alignment with God's perfect plan. You trust that as you surrender, you are becoming the person God created you to be, and that everything in your life is unfolding exactly as it should. In this surrender, you find freedom, you find peace, you find joy, and you find that your life is no longer a series of random events, but a beautiful dance with the divine, where every step is guided by God's loving hand. You begin to see that everything you have ever wanted is already on its way to you, and that all you have to do is trust, surrender, and allow God to work in His perfect timing. As you stand in this truth, let the peace that surpasses all understanding fill your heart. When you place everything in God's hands, you are stepping into a life of divine alignment, trust, and limitless possibilities. It is not about abandoning your dreams, but about releasing the need to control the how, the when, and the where. Surrendering to God's will means embracing the certainty that He is always with you, guiding, protecting, and preparing the way ahead. Remember, each morning you wake is an opportunity to surrender again, an invitation to deepen your relationship with the divine and trust that every step you take is part of the beautiful plan He has set before you. Your desires, your fears, your challenges, and your triumphs are all held in His loving hands. As you surrender, you release the burden of carrying it all yourself and make space for God's perfect provision to flow into your life. So leave it all in His hands. Trust His timing, trust His plan, trust that everything will unfold exactly as it should and in the perfect moments you need. Your faith and surrender create the foundation for divine miracles to manifest in your life. You are never alone. You are always guided, loved, and supported by the Creator of all things. Rest in the assurance that when you leave everything in God's hands, you are exactly where you are meant to be, and everything is always working for your highest good.